Hey, it's Dr. Schmidt. If you're new to this channel, please hit subscribe. But this is a video from June of 2018 by a channel called Plant-Based News. And this video is called 9 Nutrition Studies Every Ketogenic Dieter Needs to Read. So I'm a ketogenic dieter, and maybe you are too. But this is basically a bunch of vegans that are trying to promote veganism and then bash ketosis. So 9 studies. We're going to go over 9 and then actually a little bonus at the end. And I'm going to give you my commentary on all of it.
Hey everybody, welcome to Plant-Based News. So in this video we go through 9 striking, really compelling nutrition studies that will make you think twice about adopting a meat-based, low-carb, ketogenic diet. Let me know your thoughts down below. But first up, let's start with study number 1.
Here at the Physicians Committee, Dr. Barnard led a team of researchers, dietitians, physicians.
So I got to say that the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, that's at the very bottom of the screen, PCRM, led by Dr. Neil Bernard. He's the guy that said initially when Dr. Atkins died, who had slipped on an icy sidewalk and hit his head and died from trauma. Neil Bernard said that he died from a heart attack. Total liar. And there was a bunch of other vegans that jumped in. And then later, Dr. Atkins' wife was on Time magazine. I read it. And she said that these people are the vegetarian Taliban. They're like terrorists. So I have very little respect for PCRM and Dr. Bernard because of that.
Who walked about 99 people through a diet intervention.
What this actually showed.
So this is the first study. It's a 74-week clinical trial. That's a year and a half. Low-fat vegan diet and a conventional diabetes diet. They're comparing the two, and let's talk about this.
Was that when he compared patients who consumed a low-fat vegan diet to a non-vegan diet that was recommended by the American Diabetic Association, his outcomes were much, much better.
So that's very good. The vegan diet beat the American whatever association diet, which is a stupid diet.
What happened? Lower blood sugar at the end of the study on the plant-based diet,
True.
lower cholesterol, lower
True.
body weight. They
True.
were reversing their type 2 diabetes
True.
with frequency.
Their A1Cs dropped over a point on average.
Okay, this is the thing that irks me. What she's saying is that their A1C dropped over a point on average, but it was only for the first 6 months. That study was 74 weeks. What happened for the rest of the year? It was a year and a half. Their A1C went back up, and overall the A1C only dropped by 0.3 or 0.4. So they got better, then they got worse.
Which is about what you'll see with your standard diabetes medications. That's a strong change. They also lost weight, their cholesterol dropped farther, their blood pressure dropped. They just did remarkably well, and they found the diet really easy to follow.
So there was a dropout rate, though, that exceeded a similar study on ketosis. So this other study was from a group called Verta Health, VIRTA, led by Dr. Steve Finney. And currently they're approaching the 2-year mark for their ketogenic diet clinical study. But in June of 2018, when this video came out, Verta had just released their 1-year follow-up. 400 people, 262 were type 2 diabetic. Their A1C dropped 1.4 as opposed to the vegan study, which only dropped 0.4, I think it was. Now, with the Verta ketogenic study, the improvements continued month after month after month over the course of 12 months. So, and there was more people that stuck with the ketogenic diet than the vegan diet in this other study.
Why? Because there was no carb counting, there was no calorie counting, there was no portion control.
This is true too with the ketogenic diet. The only thing that they measured to see if they're actually in ketosis was the blood test. So people at home were testing their blood, writing it down, submitting it to the director of the study.
They just had to eat plants, and they could eat as many as they wanted.
This is vastly important to note because there are a lot of other meal plans out there that claim to do the same thing.
This guy hates ketosis.
The best of them being the ketogenic diet. This is a dietary program in which you are incorporating low starch but high protein, high fat.
So he should say it differently. Low carbohydrate, and then you don't have to go high protein and you don't have to go high fat. You could do moderate protein, moderate fat. You could do low fat, moderate protein, low carb. There's different ways to do it. The only thing that matters is that your carbs are less than 20 grams per day. That's the only thing that matters to get into ketosis. That's why people who fast and eat nothing but water, they get into ketosis because their carbs are less than 20. And then you can eat like high fat, high protein, keep the carbs less than 20, and you can still get into ketosis.
Into your meal plan. One of the key complications of patients who have got type 2 diabetes is cardiovascular disease. And so unfortunately, when you incorporate a low starch, high...
What he's saying is that the ketogenic diet with the extra fat leads to heart disease by this mechanism. So look at this mechanism. It starts off with meat and cheese, dietary phosphatidylcholine, which goes into the gut, and it may have a chemical reaction where the choline is split off, and it may turn into a chemical which may turn it into TMAO using betaine, and then maybe it's in the plaquing of the arteries, and maybe it's the cause of the plaquing in the arteries. There's so many mays and maybes. There's no science behind this, really. This is totally a fantasy right here. And this guy loves this because he only uses this to say that ketosis is bad.
Fat diet into the meal plan.
And here's the study, intestinal microbial metabolism of phosphatidylcholine and cardiovascular risk. This has been debunked.
These patients, their cardiovascular disease,
Moving
the
forward a little
introduction
bit.
of a whole foods plant-based.
Patients come
forward.
to me all the time, Doc, I want to do that low carb thing. I mean, I see athletes doing it. I see Hollywood people doing it. I mean, Halle Berry. Can I jump into that low carb, high fat diet? I'd like to drop some weight. I think I'm going to, feel better, maybe live longer. And it's just seems like everybody in Silicon Valley and Hollywood. And what I bring up with them is a key study that you need to be aware of. Lead author Noto.
Okay, so this study says right here, a systematic review and meta-analysis of observational studies. So an observational study is where you look at two groups of people and you see what they're doing and how their health is. And so we'll get into this, but basically, and this comes up multiple times, the observational study is the foundation of the vegan science. And an observational study, mathematically, it's very hard, almost impossible to get clinical truth. And so you can't do a lifestyle recommendation based on an observational study because the facts aren't there. The science isn't there. The purpose of an observational study is to get a hypothesis. From there, you send that hypothesis to other researchers that have more money and more manpower, and they do a trial where they actually take a group of people and they do something to that group, and the other group is the control. So this is a meta-analysis of a bunch of observational studies. So what? You can't get clinical truth and recommendations from an observational study.
Published in 2016 called Low Carbohydrate Diets and All-Cause Mortality.
All-cause mortality is an important statistic. It's probably the most important statistic. But it's valid in a randomized control trial, which is the peak, the pinnacle of importance in all the different types of research. A randomized control trial is the best. Observational studies are at the bottom.
A systematic review. So what these authors did is they gathered every quality study they could find. There were in total 17. There were more than...
There could be 3,000, it doesn't matter.
And 270,000 people in the...
It could be 2.7 million people, it doesn't matter.
Studies. These people had answered the question, what is my diet like? And
they're using food frequency questionnaires. Now, what that means is it's a survey you fill out. In the last year, how many eggs would you eat per week? How many cups of spare ribs would you eat per week or per month? How many glasses of milk do you drink? Not the milk in your cereal, but the kind that you drink, not including chocolate milk. That's in a different question. So the food frequency questionnaire, invented at Harvard School of Public Health, is not scientific. It's been studied. It's been tested. It's not a good way to do science because some people will have calories so high, it's impossible. Other people will have calories so low, it's impossible. So take these observational studies and throw them out. Take these food frequency questionnaire studies and throw them out.
those that answered in a way that was low carb, high fat, based on animal foods, had an important side effect in follow-up. That side effect was that their all-cause mortality, any chance of dying, was increased.
So eating animal protein is what the study is saying causes an increase in all-cause mortality. But the two groups of people in these observational studies always have the same characteristics. For the last 100 years, all the observational studies show the same thing over and over again when it comes to eating meat or not. It always plays out this way. Meat eaters are called non-adherers. They don't exercise. They smoke. They drink alcohol. They don't wear their seatbelts. They don't go to their medical doctor. They're overweight and they don't care. The people that don't eat meat, they're trying to be healthy. They go to their medical doctor. They do what their doctor says. They take the drugs. They exercise. They're thin. They don't smoke. They don't drink. They wear their seatbelts. And they eat beans. Can you say that beans are healthy based on that? No, there's too many confounders. There's too many other variables. Can you say that meat is bad? No, because there's too many other variables. Now, in observational studies, they try to control for this. So they do some math wizardry, but it doesn't matter because other confounders are not controllable, such as red hair, which is a genetic thing. How about emotional state? How about finances? So you can't have poor people and rich people. They have different outlooks on the world. So there's too many other things. And so that's why with an observational study, you get a hypothesis. You make a guess. You make an educated guess and you send it to other researchers and you do a trial where you actually do something to one of the groups of people.
So that's what I call the skeleton in the ketogenic diet, that not only Noto, but 6 other studies of large size and quality have pointed out in peer-reviewed, respected journals, that when you adopt an animal-based, low-carb, high-fat, we can insert the word ketogenic diet there, you are exposing yourself to 7 studies, including Noto being a huge one, that suggest the long-term risk is actually early death. Short-term, you might drop a few pounds.
So vegans will say this, short-term keto is fine. Maybe it's probably unhealthy in the long term, but if you can lose weight short-term by snorting cocaine, doing heroin, vegan researchers and leaders have said this. They're equating the ketogenic diet with drug use. Totally unethical, totally absurd.
A lot of ways to do that, and I suggest you do that whole food, plant-based, no salt, oil, sugar diet.
No salt, no oil, no sugar diet. Salt is an essential nutrient. Your cells, your nerve cells run on salt. Oil, your brain, your hormone system, your joints, your cell membranes, that's all fat. That's oil. You need that stuff. He's saying don't eat salt and don't eat oil. Oh my gosh. And he's saying no sugar. What is fruit but nothing but a skin bag of sugar? So if you're going to go vegan, don't eat sugar, according to what he's saying.
But when you're doing it with an animal low-carb diet, you need to know Noto, and you need to put it in context of this ketogenic craze and say no to keto when it's coming from animals.
Yeah, make it rhyme. It's cooler that way. It's catchy. Dr. Khan worked, he doesn't work now, but his office is not too far from my office. We're here in Michigan. I've seen his patients who come here, they still have heart disease, they're still overweight, and they can't do the vegan diet. That's the difficult diet to sustain.
One of the problems with a conventional high-fat, low-carb diet is that up to 1/3 of people who do it notice an increase in their cholesterol levels.
Okay, so 1/3 of people have a raise in LDL when you go high-fat, low-carb. Okay, now that's called lean mass hyperresponders. It's maybe more about like 25%. And you can find more information on this from cholesterolcode.com. Dave Feldman has described this very well. And what it comes down to is these numbers. The total cholesterol goes up, let's say above 250. The HDL goes up to 80. And the LDL is up around 130, for example. The triglycerides will drop below 100, definitely below 80. So lean mass hyperresponder has no risk whatsoever of cardiovascular disease as far as we can tell right now. And people are looking into this. But these are people who are thin, they got 6-packs, they run marathons, and their cholesterol is 400. And their LDL is 300. And their HDL is 90. So what you do is you take the total cholesterol, subtract the LDL, subtract the HDL, and in this example, the remaining cholesterol is 10. You want the remnant cholesterol to be below 19. That's what matters. Now, people can have high cholesterol, let's say 300, and their LDL is also high, and their HDL is very low because they're eating too much grain, too much sugar, and too much fat at the same time. And their triglycerides can be very high. I've seen as high as 2,000. So you put them on a low-carb keto diet, I've seen that cholesterol or triglycerides drop to normal from 2,000.
Now, there are many studies to show us that a whole food plant-based diet is much better for reducing cholesterol and improving your weight.
So the point of reducing cholesterol, is it to reduce your brain power? Is it to reduce your sexual drive? Why would you want to reduce your cholesterol? Do you want to harm your hormones? Do you want to make your joints creaky? No, you want to have cholesterol and you want to have LDL. These are important nutrients. They're vital to have it. And the vegans are thinking, they're constantly saying that LDL is a cause of heart disease. That is not a true statement. Yeah, there's LDL in the plaquing, just like there's TMAO, just like there's scar tissue, just like there's white blood cells, just like there's a bunch of stuff in the plaquing of artery. There's calcium. So the point here is LDL is not a cause of heart disease. Diabetes is the main cause of heart disease. And diabetes is best measured by insulin. How high is your insulin? Not blood glucose, but insulin.
But for those of you who are already quite set on having a high-fat, low-carb diet, there was a study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine back in 2009 that showed us that if you have a plant-based low-carbohydrate diet, the so-called Eco-Atkins diet, then you have the potential to reduce your cholesterol even more than what you can achieve with a whole food plant-based diet.
So how low do you want your cholesterol to go down to? I've seen vegans advocate for less than 150 and less than 130. Now you're talking about Alzheimer's, and like AIDS patients and cancer patients have total cholesterol at 130. So there is a dangerous zone, and below 150 I think is not a good cholesterol number unless you're genetically set up that way. And so, but the question here is like, how high can your cholesterol go? Well, it can go as high as it wants to, as long as the relationship between total cholesterol, LDL, HDL is all in good balance.
So what that tells us is, if you're going for high fat, low carb, always make it plant-based.
And you can do high fat, low carb, keto, plant-based with a book called Ketotarian by Dr. Will Cole.
The very famous Dr. Dean Ornish.
Dr. Dean Ornish is a guy that he's built an empire on a falsity. And the thing that's false is that the plant-based diet reverses cholesterol and heart disease. And the reason why his empire is based on this falsity is because in his experimental group, he had two groups of people, the control group and then experimental. They did multiple lifestyle changes. They had weekly counseling with their spouses. They did exercise. They cut back on tobacco, and then they did a plant-based diet. So which of those four was the most important thing for reversing heart disease? And is the plant-based diet the only thing that they did? And if you wanted to do a plant-based diet, but you still smoked, you didn't exercise, and you never did counseling with your spouse, and you hated your spouse, are you still going to be able to reverse your heart disease? There's too many variables in this study.
Physician in San Francisco Bay Area.
Lots of plastic surgery.
Who got into the field of prevention and reversal of disease as a very young man, as a medical student, inspired by a yogini from India, Satchidananda. But he took some Eastern ideas and said, let's study them with the highest tech science.
What he did was he took about 50 people who had measurable heart disease, plaque that you could see in an angiogram, and put them on either a control
Just notice at the top, intensive lifestyle changes, plural. She'll mention this.
diet. That was standard advice, like eat more fish as opposed to red meat. And the other half of the group he put on a low-fat, plant-based diet, where they were asked to eat fruits, vegetables, beans, grains, and a minimal amount of low-fat dairy products. They were also asked to reduce their stress, exercise a little bit, and avoid tobacco.
Reduce their stress, exercise a little bit, and reduce tobacco. Those are confounders.
After about a year, what he found was amazing.
So they reversed their heart disease, which is great. Very good. And you're comparing, the control group is being compared to the standard care group, which is horrible. So veganism is better than the standard American diet. I've been saying that for over 2 years. But ketosis beats veganism.
In most cases,
Moving
disappear.
forward.
Chest pain had diminished.
The problems with undergoing heart surgery in the study, patients were able to avoid the need for surgery. It showed that the
Which is great. So he showed that people who did these multiple lifestyle changes were able to avoid heart surgery. Fantastic.
compliance with using nutrition in the introduction of patient management was very, very high. One of the key things that the ketogenic diet does is that it drives the process of...
Again, same study. He's saying it's TMAO, and this has been completely debunked. And the ketogenic diet does not drive heart disease. Verta Health has published fantastic graphs showing the improvement in cardiovascular health on the 400 people that did ketosis for a year. And I'm going to put that right here.
Cardiovascular. Dr. D. Nornish was able to demonstrate that. Unfortunately, the ketogenic diets will drive that process forward.
False. Next
I
one.
want to share with you some results from a very important series of studies done by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic.
All right.
Dr. Esselstyn is a surgeon, but as he will tell you,
Fast
what he
forward a little
tackled
bit.
was heart disease. Cholesterol level, I'm at risk.
So this is from Esselstyn, and
These were people who had heart disease now. They were at risk of, and what he said in dairy products, are no cholesterol and no animal fat. Something happened in their bodies.
okay, so they did a low-fat, no animal product diet, and something happened in their bodies. What is it?
Not only was their cholesterol level falling, their blood pressure improving, their weight melting away, but the arteries were starting to open up again.
Right, and true statement. Now, I did a video about this, and I looked for other pictures of arteries opening up from the study. This is the only picture I found. This picture is splattered all over social media from vegans saying that the vegan diet is the only diet that's ever been proven to open up arteries. So I did a video to debunk all of that, because with ketosis and measuring CIMT and measuring coronary artery calcium score, you can improve the health of your arteries and your heart. You can pull that calcium out of there with the ketogenic diet.
Their chest pain melted away. And
Moving-
best of all,
moving forward.
Bulletproof. So people may need medical, Dr. Esselstyn.
About protein. The idea that
So here's Dr. Khan again. We're talking about protein and athletes.
we need to eat chicken to be a weightlifter, to be an athlete, to be a professional athlete, that we're putting our health at risk if we don't eat lots of animal protein. And, you know, you're seeing that disappear when you see world-class athletes on a whole food plant diet, like a Lewis Hamilton.
This guy's young. He looks like he's in his early 20s. You can do some stupid things to your body when you're young and still get away with it. And we've had just so many vegans start to eat meat, and they announce it on YouTube. And it seems like a couple dozen in the last 6 months or more. And they sort of fall off at about year 4 or 5, somewhere around there. So maybe this guy, I don't know this guy. Maybe he's been a vegan for a year or 4 years or something like that. He looks pretty healthy. But if he were to continue, at some point, do the teeth start to crack? I know people whose teeth cracked because of the vegan diet. They lose inches in height because their bones are starting to resorb. And of course, they lose their muscles. And that doesn't happen with all of them, but it happens with most of them.
And F1 and Rich Roll, long distance run.
Rich Roll, long distance runner. I don't understand this guy. Maybe he's a genetic freak, but he's thriving on a vegan diet, and some people do thrive on a vegan diet.
And so many others. But there's science behind this. And what we're doing right now is we're learning that a whole food plant diet that's naturally lower in protein may actually be an advantage in terms of survival. Or what?
So wait, you just said survival. I thought we were talking about athletes. I thought we were talking about protein. Okay, so we're going to switch gears here. We're going to talk about survival and...
What's the science?
What's the science on? Okay, we're talking about all-cause mortality. We're not talking about athletic performance. Whatever you were thinking in the last 60 seconds, just forget all that. We're switching over to longevity.
One.
Okay, now this study here, it says animal and plant protein intake and all-cause and cause-specific mortality results from 2 prospective U.S. cohort studies. What does the word cohort mean? It means group. So you're studying groups. What kind of study studies groups? Observational studies. Another term is epidemiological studies. This is just a fancy observational study called a cohort. And you can see here the people that did it. We have Clinical and Translational Epidemiology Unit and Division of Gastroenterology at Massachusetts General Hospital, Department of Nutrition, Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, Boston, that's epidemiology. So these are just epidemiologists, and they're looking at groups, and they come to the same conclusion that all the observational studies do, and they have not been tested. These results here have not been tested to be true.
2016, the journal called JAMA and
Moving
Author
forward.
Song looked at an enormous database that Harvard has. It's a database with over 131,000 participants.
It could be 13 million participants, doesn't matter.
Followed for over 30 years.
It could be followed for 60 years, doesn't matter.
Every 4 years, these people were asked over and over, what's your diet like? What's your diet
Food frequency questionnaire, totally
like?
debunked.
What's your diet like? And they all started free of disease, but by over 30 years, many of them had passed away or had heart events. What they find, the higher the animal protein content
You know where this is
to
going.
their diet, chicken, egg, cheese, red meat, the higher the animal protein content, the higher was the risk of dying of heart disease.
So was it the eating the meat, or was it that they're smoking and drinking more than the other group?
So you may eat chicken to lift weights, but you're going to die sooner, according to the study, at least in association.
Right there, he said it. At least an association. The definition of association is super important right here. He is telling you this is not cause. He's saying that meat does not cause early death or whatever disease. He says at least an association. Very important.
What did they find about plant protein? Think about beans, think about peas, think about lentils.
Think about not smoking cigarettes. Think about not drinking alcohol. Think about wearing your seatbelt. Think about exercising. Think about staying thin.
Think about whole grains, think about nuts and seeds, even vegetables and fruits. They found the higher your plant protein intake, the lower the chance of dying of heart disease. And in fact, the lower the chance of dying of any cause at all. You can decrease your risk during a 30-year follow-up of dying of any cause by eating food.
So the all-cause mortality, very important, but most important in the randomized control trials.
That are rich.
And I've been following Dr. Khan on Twitter now for almost a year, and I've seen over and over and over again, myself and other people have tried to educate him about epidemiological studies are not clinically relevant, and he doesn't learn. And maybe he needs more DHA, which is only found in animal plants or animal products, but maybe found in sea plants like seaweed. But he's from Michigan. He's down this way, about 40-minute drive, and there's no seaweed over there. I guarantee that.
In plants, and plants have protein, don't worry. So this is an amazing study because of the numbers, because of these strong associations, because of the long follow-up, because of the...
He said strong associations. Association is the proper word. He did not say causation.
quality of repeatedly asking questionnaires.
Food frequency questionnaire, totally debunkable.
Bottom line, when they say, where do you get your protein?
Make it rhyme.
You answer back, why are you worried? You're probably getting too much protein.
How is it? Are most people getting too much protein? No, I think most people are not getting enough protein. We've been battered this message from the government, from the schools, from the vegans, from the epidemiology units at Harvard and other schools. Too much protein. And now people are feeling weak and they need more protein.
It'll leave them with a question mark, but you're saying the right thing scientifically.
All right, next one. How you doing? Stay with me.
An important group who has been studied over the decades are the Seventh-day Adventists.
Okay, so a group, cohort, epidemiology, observation. These are supposed to be the 9 best nutrition studies to convert you, the keto eater, to veganism. But we're on number 7, and this is another observational study.
Now, this is a very health-conscious group of people because they are asked to do things like avoid caffeine, avoid alcohol, and avoid meat. Interestingly, most of them stick to those first 2 criteria, but the last one, avoiding meat, some do, some don't. Now, for researchers, this sets up a very natural experiment to see what meat eating does to health outcomes.
Okay, so the Seventh-day Adventists, they live a long time, and this is from the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics at Loma Linda University. And so you have some Seventh-day Adventists that eat meat and others don't. What other factors are involved in their decision or in their daily activities? I'm moving forward here, and I'm going to jump to the results of this study. And she is saying that this graph shows us that eating meat is bad because we have at the bottom, meat eaters are overweight. Okay, and then at the very top, the vegans are in the healthy BMI. They're at like 23 BMI. Now, how healthy is that for the vegans? Sounds pretty good. Now, the meat eaters, though, what else are they eating? Is it in the study? Are they eating any bread? Are they eating any sugar? If they're going to cheat, like in the religious group, you know, it's part of their religion to eat well. But if you have some of them that are going to cheat and eat meat, then are they cheating on other things that can add in the carbohydrates to make them overweight? So now this is not the carnivore tribe at the bottom, because when the study was done, the carnivore diet wasn't yet invented. I mean, people have done it in the past, but it wasn't a thing yet. So you can't just say that meat eaters are overweight, because when people go carnivore, they lose weight. So this is other too many confounders that are causing people to gain weight or lose weight. Now, how thin can somebody get? I'm the first guy to die in a famine. You don't want me losing weight. So if I go on a vegan diet, I'm going to lose weight. Does that mean that it's healthier? No.
Vegetarians, a little
Moving
bit
forward.
Only the population of Seventh-day Adventists, because they set up a very good...
All right, next study. Come on, you can do
I want
it.
to share with you the results of a really important research study. It was done by Dr. Dean Ornish.
Wait, Dean Ornish, isn't that the guy that had too many confounders in his experimental group?
Now, you know Dr. Ornish as the medical genius who showed that you can reverse heart disease sites years. So what Dr. Ornish did was he brought in a group of men, and half of them were in the control group, getting the treatments their doctor.
So we're talking about intensive lifestyle changes, plural, may affect the progression of prostate cancer. There's multiple changes
Doctors
here,
recommended.
and you can't say it's the whole food plant-based diet that did it.
The other half began a completely vegan diet. It's good for your heart. Will it be good for cancer? Now, what he found was that among the people who were in the control group, about 6 of them couldn't wait anymore. They had to go ahead and have treatment before the study was over. I mean, they had to have surgery or they had to have radiation because their cancer was progressing too quickly. But in the vegan group, nobody needed treatment in this year-long study because they were tracking their blood tests. Their PSA, prostate-specific antigen, showed that their cancer wasn't progressing. In fact, for them, their PSA levels actually dropped by about 4%.
So this is good. So you go vegan and you drop your PSA by 4% in a year. And at least it's not getting worse. And those people did not need to go through treatment. So if your PSA is 8, then it drops 4% 12 months later. Now you're at 7.68. And ideally you want that at 2. Definitely less than 5, but 2, 1, that'd be better. And so good, that's very good. Now, how many other confounders were in there? Regardless, the people that did this vegan diet, did they also get rid of the Pepsi and the junk food and all the white bread or all the bread, all the pasta? Like, what else did they do with their diet? There's other confounders. But yeah, I mean, and I've had people reduce their PSA, and we're throwing in supplements, and I'm making sure that they're off of dairy, they're off of sugar, and I'm getting them into ketosis, and I'm giving them supplements that pull crap out of their prostate.
Overall, over the course of a year. So it looks like a healthy plant-based diet isn't just great for your heart, it's also good for cancer prevention and for cancer survival.
If you want to prevent cancer, nothing beats ketosis. Ketones have been shown to kill cancer cells, even in the presence of glucose. So ketosis beats veganism when it comes to cancer. That's my experience, that's my opinion, and that's what I've seen in various research papers.
The China study was described by the New York Times back in 1990 as the Grand Prix of epidemiology.
All right, good. Let's talk about more epidemiology. This is study number 9. There's one more at the very end, but
Dr. Campbell spent 20 years
he could have spent 40 years, doesn't matter.
studying around 6,000 people
It could have been 60,000 people, doesn't matter.
in rural counties of China. And this study really provided a foundation for the mountains of evidence that we now have that a whole food plant-based diet is optimal for our health. Some of the primary findings that help us in his study are that nutrition is the primary foundation for health.
So wait, Campbell discovered that nutrition is the primary foundation for health. He's the guy that discovered that? No, other people knew this from before. And that statement is an axiom. It's a natural law that occurs and is understood just by observation or by saying it. If I say, hey, nutrition is the foundation for health, some people say, oh yeah, totally makes sense, right? But Campbell did not discover that.
That we don't need as much protein as we think we need.
Okay, this is debatable. I've already talked about that. I'm not going to keep
And
going.
that if we have a low animal protein diet, we are far less likely to suffer from things like heart disease.
It's the same epidemiological red herrings.
Several forms of cancer and diabetes.
Diabetes. If you have diabetes, the best way to get rid of that is with a ketogenic diet. I have a guy now. He needs to lose a lot of weight. He's been diabetic for many years. 2 weeks later, his blood sugars are 80 with the ketogenic diet. So it beats the whole food plant-based diet. They both work, but ketosis is better. You get faster results, and all the other factors get better too.
Compared to if we have a high animal protein diet.
All
Now,
right.
these studies are just the tip of an amazing iceberg.
These 9 studies are the best of the best that these guys could come up with to convince you to get away from eating meat and to eating the whole food plant-based diet. The rest of the iceberg is a big mountain of less important studies, less clinically relevant studies. These guys collaborated and they're like, oh yeah, let's do this study. This study's awesome. I just debunked every single study.
There are so many studies out and coming
Fast
out.
forward.
A little bit of learning some new tricks in the kitchen, maybe learning some new tastes.
So he's saying that if you change your approach about food a little bit, then you can become a whole food plant-based eater. And what I'm saying is if you need to learn a new taste, how about learn how to like liver, eat liver?
But a plant-based diet emerges better for your cholesterol. That's the thing to recommend.
There will be studies out there that will effectively show that ketogenic diets can aid in weight loss, but unfortunately they are not sustainable in the
Totally sustainable.
long term. They are not sustainable for the planet from an environmental perspective,
That's a whole different subject, which I'm not going to get into now.
and they unfortunately do not have the outcomes that we hope for.
They absolutely have the outcomes. Verta Health has some of the greatest research on that.
They drive disease.
That's false. I debunked that twice already from this guy.
They don't deny it.
Now, why does a whole food plant-based diet work? Well, number one, it's filling. You can have
That's the funniest thing in this whole video.
healthy starchy carbohydrates. You can feel full and you're not going to be having so many cravings. Number two, it treats the root cause of disease. Number
The root cause being junk food.
three, people who eat a whole food plant-based diet are generally lower in weight than those who do not. Number four, it improves the suppleness of our arteries, thereby reducing our blood rate levels, which
Moving
reduces
forward.
the body load.
This video, if you got something out of it, please consider subscribing by pressing the subscribe button under this video, and let me know what you thought of the 9 striking nutrition studies presented in this video. I personally can think of lots of other studies that support the idea that whole food plant-based nutrition is the optimal way to live, including the broad study.
The broad study, I looked into it, is 6 months, 2 groups of people, clinical trial, and the vegan group had lower body weight. They also had lower LDL, but they had to do a little manipulation to get the LDL to be lower and to make it clinically significant. So the broad study just shows that people lost weight, and that's it. So if you like this information, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and I'll see you at the next video.